A group of armed militants stands together, killers raising a black skull flag, Pietro and Killer among them, rifles displayed openly. A voice cuts through. There is something in this world that even the most dangerous armed groups fear to their core. Pietro sits alone among the fallen, bodies scattered around him, pistol hanging loose in his hand, when a voice from off-panel cuts through the silence and calls his name. The voice names Pietro, and what it says next reframes everything, positioning him not as a survivor among the dead, but as the very thing that armed men across the world have learned to fear. Pietro fills the frame, gray-haired, suited, cigarette in hand, and the voice finishes its introduction, Pietro in his 60s. The voice delivering that verdict isn't done. Whoever is watching this aftermath says he would have died a legend if it had ended back then, but instead Pietro is now hunted by thousands, stripped of everything he built. Pietro delivers the verdict himself, mocking, tongue barely held, calling it tragic that a legend of his loyalty is now marked for death by the very world he served. Killer locks eyes on whoever stands over him, blood running down his face, and forces the words out. "It's you, isn't it?" Pietro stands over the bodies, gun raised, and calls out, "Peter." But you see, the words landing like the start of something worse than a threat. Killer stares back through the blood and sweat, telling Pietro it doesn't make sense, that thousands of eyes are already watching him, and every one of them is after his life. Killer tugs at his ear, gun raised, and fires back with his own disbelief. How is Pietro still alive, and how has no one managed to find him? Even for the legendary Peter, none of it adds up. Pietro answers the question with one of his own. Do you want to know the answer? Turning Killer's disbelief back on him before saying another word. Pietro walks through the alley, handgun at his side, bodies sprawled around him in pools of blood. He answers Killer's challenge directly. Even if hundreds of thousands of eyes are watching his every move, none of them will ever find him. Pietro looms over Killer's bloodied body and begins his answer, because, leaving the word hanging unfinished, like he's savoring every second before the explanation drops. The answer never comes, not. A masked figure in a black suit grips the sides of an oversized, grotesque mask and delivers the opening of a verdict. Unfortunately, the Peter you guys are looking for is now, and stops there, letting the unfinished sentence do the work. Killer's eyes go wide. Through the blood and sweat, he chokes out the only words left. No way. That's impossible. Now Killer finally gets it, staring ahead as the words break apart in his mouth. Peters. You're. The name hits the air before Killer can finish the thought. Pietro steps out of the dark, cigarette at his lips and a weapon in hand, the silhouette of a man who was supposed to be a ghost. 3 months ago. Moments later, an off-screen voice snaps at Mr. Bay, warning that he cannot keep doing this. At the same time, Killer keeps pressing the paper sign onto the wooden post. Pietro leans over the desk, back turned, and delivers the warning directly. If the calls keep getting ignored and no hospital visit happens, there will be consequences. He grabs a fistful of pills from the cluttered table and shouts that without treatment, the man will be dead in less than 3 months. He keeps moving with the books in his arms and says he is not afraid of death. Pietro adds that he has spent his whole life dealing with life and death situations. Now Pietro looks down at a framed item and says he gave 50 years of his life to the organization. He makes one thing clear after that. He does not regret any part of it. As he looks at a portrait photography book, he repeats the point to himself. He lived a life with no regret. This time he states it outright, he did. But then something shifts. Pietro looks down, quiet, and catches himself mid-thought. Now that I think about it, And for the first time, Pietro stops in front of his own reflection and admits he has never taken a picture of himself before. The scene cuts to the outside of a shop, its glass door standing open beneath a clearance sign. Una steps through the open doorway with a bright hello, her pink backpack slung over one shoulder. And just like that, Pietro's solitary shop has its first visitor. Instead, Una gets straight to the point and says she came to buy middle school textbooks. Pietro stays among the shelves, occupied with the books as he hears her out. Pietro goes quiet, his back still turned to her. He turns back with a smile, welcoming the visitor at last. Pietro even jokes that they sell every book they have there, except the ones they do not. Yuna asks if the shop carries used textbooks, and Pietro keeps moving through the aisle as she rattles off their range. Editions spanning the 1960s all the way to 2020, sorted by country. He answers without hesitation, the latest one. Yuna clarifies it's for her younger sibling. Pietro confirms it. Yuna is a student from that high school, and gestures toward the shelves to point her in the right direction. She notices Yuna's green name tag and pegs her as a senior. Yuna confirms it, then asks how she knows so much. The answer comes without hesitation. She knows everything about everyone in this neighborhood. Caught off guard, Yuna blurts out, huh? She starts to respond, but all she gets out is a hesitant, this is... And instead, a huge, shrink-wrapped stack of books is now sitting on the table. The partially visible customer can only admit it was not what they planned on buying. Yuna admits she only has 1,001 and can't cover the cost, then notices the books aren't even used. Pietro slides the wrapped stack across the counter anyway, telling her he doesn't need them anymore, though he's trailing, but still suggests he's not quite done. Yuna tears the wrapping open, pressing down on the cover beneath. An orange-red bird illustration stares back from the exposed surface. Pietro holds out the full stack and asks if she's sure she wants them all as secondhand now. His voice calm, the question almost gentle. A voice tells her she doesn't have to do that. They can see how much she adores her younger sibling. The words land softly at first, but the follow-up cuts deeper. Be good to them while you still can. All she can manage is a bewildered pardon. The warning lands like a slap. Asterisk, or else you'll regret it. Asterisk. Yuna stares forward, frozen, the words sinking in. Yuna turns back to Pietro, stumbling over what to call him sir, grandpa, before settling on a makeshift blend of both. He doesn't look up, busy sorting through the stacked materials behind the counter. So Pietro tells her to just call him Mr., and Yuna quickly corrects herself. That's right, Mr. And the question turns personal as an off-panel voice asks, have you ever regretted something before? Pietro keeps his hands on the spool and stacked wood. Pietro's answer is measured. The longer you live, the more regrets you have. He pauses, head down, and leaves the thought unfinished with a quiet, however. Hannah screams and reaches out as a hooded figure holds her from behind. A desperate voice insists this is the only way both she and her daughter can survive. Pietro finishes the thought in a low, steady voice. There is nothing anyone can do about regrets from the past. Now Pietro turns that reflection into advice, saying the listener may not understand yet, but must look after their younger sibling. He follows it with a warning not to do something they will regret later. Yuna stands over Pietro with a knife raised overhead, giving him one chance, turn back and walk away, and she won't kill him. Yuna's eyes go wide. Someone just revealed knowledge he had no right to have, and the realization hits her like a slap. Asterisk, how did he know? The answer comes before Yuna can even form another question. Whoever is speaking has memorized every face from the school, confirmed Pietro's claim just to be sure, and now delivers a quiet, final verdict. Asterisk, it's a pity. Asterisk. Yuna raises a blade behind Pietro, who stands oblivious, still holding his rope. Yuna's alarm sharpens and is something colder. The school is only 2 years old, which means whoever memorized every Yuna's face did so in an impossibly short window. Yuna smiles and confirms the guess is right, then asks how Pietro knows so much, but even as the words leave her mouth, a thought cuts through. She's starting to be drawn in by him. The unnamed speaker's answer comes not in words, but in a single, devastating observation. He spent his entire life surrounded by the scent of blood, and he can smell the knife Yuna is holding behind Pietro's back, masked poorly by cheap perfume. Pietro stays oblivious, but the unnamed speaker has just made clear he knows exactly what Yuna is doing. Yuna snaps. She's realized he's been guiding this entire exchange, and she raises her arm to strike, forcing herself forward with one desperate thought. She has no choice but to see it through. Killer's eye snaps wide. Something has caught him off guard mid-strike. Yuna's voice cuts through. She's the one with the knife, and yet something has stopped her cold, her own confusion breaking the attack before it lands. Pietro stands in the darkness, his voice barely holding together. Does it feel like I'll be the one to die? Both Pietro and Yuna freeze at the same instant, shock hitting them like a wall. A hand reaches down toward the bundled papers as the woman backs against the bookshelves, gripping a small blade, the only thing between her and whoever just closed in. Pietro holds the ribbon up and tells her to take the books. His voice steadies. He knows what she said about her younger sibling is real. Yuna meets his gaze and says she can read people by the look in their eyes, that she's been doing this for 50 years. Pietro turns the knife on the listener and cuts straight to the point. They both came from the Glory Orphanage, and whoever trained the listener clearly didn't finish the job. He goes further, explaining that in their organization, if a voluntary service fails and the sentence cuts off there, the unspoken consequence hanging between them. He drops the rest of the explanation and attacks, driving his clawed hand straight at Yuna as he announces, Plan B comes into play. As Yuna closes in, Pietro jerks back in shock, and a voice blurts out, Plan B. Instead, Pietro gets a hand around Yuna's throat and locks her in place while she clutches a small blade. At the same time, two more Pietros drop in above them, sending books and loose pages flying. The two Pietros open fire down the aisle, and the third Pietro tumbles backward through the shelves, shielding his head as bullets tear through the surrounding books and scatter debris across the floor. One of the Pietros pins the other to the floor, gripping the back of her head while he finishes the explanation. If a mission fails, the volunteer is to be neutralized too. Yuna is on the floor, staring up as someone looms over her, and the cut-off exclamation tells it all. She's just recognized who it is. Pietro lies collapsed in a pool of blood, his plaid shirt soaked through at the abdomen. Yuna sees the wound, and the realization hits. It went straight through his stomach. Across the aisle, Killer opens fire from above, spraying rounds into the floor and shells around them. Yuna throws herself over Pietro as the shots tear through the space, and Pietro jerks up her arms to cover herself. Now, Pietro snaps his handgun forward and swings his aim toward something, just. Killer has Yuna locked in front of him, gun pressed to her throat, with Pietro looming at his back, and Pietro, from the foreground, stares them down, gun raised. Killer's eye goes wide. Shit. As Killer drives a brutal strike down into Pietro's face, Pietro jerks back with a single realization. His body will not move the way he wants. Pietro leans forward, fist raised, suspicion cutting through the pain. Is someone like him really Peter? As soon as the question leaves him, Pietro is sent crashing onto the library floor, while three men at the far end just watch. Over him, a voice lays it out. Objectives come first, and reputation comes above everyone else. Octopus steps into focus, identified on the spot as the boss's informant, and delivers his verdict with a calm grin. Even the legendary Pietro is helpless against disease. Octopus cuts the smugness and snaps, demanding the real reason behind the attempt on his life. From the floor, Pietro fires back the same question. What is the reason behind trying to kill him? Now the answer comes from off-panel. The boss doesn't like Pietro. Pietro turns back and blurts out the only thing he can ask. Why him? Octopus doesn't answer the question. He delivers a warning instead. Leave this world, and thousands of chasers will hunt Pietro down. Guns close in from every direction. Killer, Pietro, and a ring of suited gunmen all locked in a standoff with weapons drawn. Octopus stands alone in the spotlight, fists clenched, and then the number drops. 7. 6 billion won. Now, Pietro blurts out that 7. 6 billion is the exact amount sitting in his bank account, and Octopus confirms it is the money Pietro saved over a lifetime of risking his life. Octopus takes it one step further and says that money is about to end up in someone else's hands. Octopus grins wide and sneers. How fucking lucky of them, right? He lets the words hang, then shifts his tone. So, Senior Peter. Pietro cuts in with a direct answer of his own and tells Senior Peter to die by his hands. Across from him, Killer's fist crashes into Pietro's cheek and snaps his face sideways. Pietro takes the hit head-on. Killer seizes Pietro by the throat, and books explode off the shelves around them as Pietro screams. "You should have quietly built your coffin and laid in it," Killer snarls. "Why did you have to make things more difficult for us?" Killer hurls him down the aisle, and Pietro crashes backward into the window, scattering books in every direction. As the books settle, a light blue-haired man in a red shirt lies, slumped behind the curtains, apparently out cold. Off-screen, one voice says he is knocked out, and another orders the scene cleaned up. Moments later, Octopus pulls the curtain aside and finds Pietro slumped inside the cramped space. Blood has already spread across the floor beneath him. Pietro is conscious, barely, but conscious, blood-soaked and broken. He raises a hand toward Octopus and smiles, telling him it's a small present. Octopus jerks back as a flashbang sails past his face. A flashbang. A moment later, rain pounds the alley outside as bright light pours through the building's open door. The fight spills out of sight and into whatever is waiting inside. Inside, Killer charges in with his gun up and finds a target gone. Pietro covers behind him as one of them curses that they were tricked and drawn to the back door. Octopus barks the order. Pietro couldn't have gotten far with that much blood loss, and Killer needs to move now. Killer answers and breaks into a search, while Una stays kneeling on the floor behind them, left out of the chase entirely. Una stands alone among the bookshelves, frozen in place, her expression sharp with alarm. She's spotted something. A black sedan tears through the city streets at night, and from inside comes a shout of pure frustration. They were close, but they've lost him. The woman in the front seat lays it out plainly. Pietro's official wanted order is coming, and she needs to reach him before it drops. Octopus sits silent beside her, and somewhere in the back, Killer rides without a word. The chase isn't over. It just became a race against the clock. Una doesn't soften it. The man thereafter is nearly dead from cancer, she says, and that's exactly why he should be passing things down to his people now. She lets the word, right? Rain hammers the street outside a lantern-lit building, light spilling warm through its windows. Inside, Gangster in a red plaid shirt grips the door handle and steps through, his expression locked and deliberate. Whatever is waiting on the other side, he's already made his decision about it. The room on the other side is a Chinese restaurant. Round tables set with lazy Susans and teapots, red lanterns hanging from the ceiling, not a single person seated at any of them. Pietro stands at the threshold, scanning the empty dining hall. Pietro stares straight ahead, cigarette between his fingers, and says it out loud. Octopus extends his life. Not a question. A fact he's turning over, testing the weight of it. The man who's been riding in silence beside Una, the one everyone seems to orbit around. He's the reason Pietro is still breathing. Pietro stands near the restroom entrance of a busy station corridor, umbrella in hand, blending into the crowd of commuters and travelers passing by. No one looks twice at him. Just another face in the station. Someone in the crowd spots Pietro. Whoa, who is that? Another voice follows immediately. What does he do? Pietro stands shirtless, one hand pressed to the side of his face, his red plaid shirt discarded on the counter beside him. He looks at the man across from him and asks, "Does this make sense?" Instead, Pietro points at his stomach and says the bullet wounds that tore through his abdomen are gone. Even the cancer cells that had been draining his life have disappeared. He takes in what the mirror shows him and can't make sense of it. The bullet wounds are gone, the cancer is gone, and now this. He's staring at the face of his younger self. He touches his cheek like he needs to confirm it's real, and all he can manage is the question hanging inside him. How did something like this happen? He doesn't have an answer. All he can say is he doesn't know why any of this has happened. But that confusion is already working in his favor. Wanted posters plaster the walls, showing the old Pietro white-haired, aged, while the real one stands in the open with his arms crossed, unrecognized. Armed men search the streets, and bystanders walk right past him. The old Pietro they're hunting no longer exists. He's not done making his point. Gangster fixes his gaze forward, jaw set, and cuts to what actually matters. More importantly, Pietro looks down at his shirt, torn, strained from everything his body has been through, and says the only logical thing. He needs new clothes. Someone mentions that Habin's 80 million won commercial payment just came through. Gangster turns, caught off guard, a single question mark hanging on his face. A voice cuts in. The account had only 100,000 won in it. Gangster laughs into his phone, not even trying to keep his voice down. If the guy wants to complain, he should have read the contract properly. Pietro, on a call of his own nearby, chimes in with something worse. The man didn't have enough money for his mother's medicine, so she's about to die. They both laugh. Octopus coughs off to the side, unbothered. The laughter carries right into the next exchange. Pietro jabs that Gangster is basically the boss now, and Gangster fires back, asking if Pietro's already spending that money on Louis Vuitton. Pietro shrugs it off. The clothes are part of doing business. Gangster leans into the real lesson. Flash the Louis Vuitton. Show them the watch at the signing table, and they lose focus long enough to put pen to paper. Then he turns and addresses the younger guys directly, making clear this isn't idle talk. Pietro steps between the two smokers and tells them to take it outside. One of them doesn't move, just stares. The other fires back with a slur, already looking for a fight. Pietro gets in the kid's face, asking if there are any other smokers around, or if he was the one mouthing off. The youth barely gets a word out before the threat lands. Talking formally to your elders again, and you're getting beat down. Gangster doesn't wait for an apology. He slaps the youth hard across the face and tells him to get lost. Then, cigarette still hanging from his lip, delivers a final warning. Don't go around meddling, or it'll cost him his life. Pietro stands just behind him, watching, not intervening. The message has been delivered, and the kid is being let off easy for now. The kid shuffles out, and the gangsters don't watch him leave. They've already moved on. One of them, smirking, turns toward the others and cuts straight to business. Why would anyone walk up to them like that? The taunt lands with contempt rather than curiosity. Asterisk, so why did you come up to us? You're going to get fucked up. Asterisk across from him. Another gangster smokes and listens, unbothered. Pietro answers the taunt himself. Let's not waste any time, and reaches past them to hit the switch on the wall panel. The door swings open and Pietro steps through, his voice already carrying the rest of the sentence. And end this quickly. The two men spot him coming. One mocks the idea of manners. The other laughs it off with a cigarette still between his fingers. Pietro keeps walking, unhurried, closing the distance without a word. He gets right to the point. Pietro rolls his sleeve up and tells them exactly what's coming. That he's about to give them a personal lesson in how Koreans treat their elders. It's not a threat delivered loud or fast. It lands slow and deliberate, which makes it worse. Pietro reminds tourists that this bastard's still speaking informally, and tourist responds, "Let's kill him for real today." Pietro drives his fist straight into the bigger man's gut. The gangster buckles, body folding around the impact. Gangster doubles over, spit flying from his mouth as the punch lands home. Killer comes down on Gangster with a follow-up punch, driving into him while Gangster lies flat on his back, coat splayed open and chest exposed. The scene shifts to a restroom. One gangster already lies crumpled on the tile floor, while another charges forward with a knife, screaming about who the hell this guy thinks he is. The man he's rushing holds a long gun pointed down, back turned, not even flinching. Pietro doesn't even turn around. He just tells Gangster flat out. He doesn't know who this guy is, but he knows exactly what that knife is. A pocket knife. And Gangster is holding it wrong. Gangster freezes. Pietro's voice lands before he can even process the threat. You'll cut your finger off if you hold it like that. It stops him cold. He's the one with the knife. He's the one who stepped forward, and he's just been corrected like a child who picked up scissors wrong. Gangster doesn't take the correction quietly. He shoves forward anyway, knife out, screaming at Pietro. Who's the one swinging it, huh? Pietro's voice cuts through the chaos, calm and flat. If you were going to stab me, you would have done it already. He leans in and finishes the thought out loud. His arm wouldn't be in front of him at all. Pietro isn't just deflecting the threat. He's walking the gangster through exactly why the attack already failed before the knife got anywhere close. Gangster snaps. Done with Pietro's lecture, he lunges forward with the knife and screams for him to shut up. All restraint gone. Nothing left but the charge. Pietro answers the charge, not with a block, but by driving a syringe upward straight into Gangster's path. Gangster crashes into him anyway, grabbing at his upper body, and the two collide hard in the middle of the office. Killer drives into the man on the ground, the impact landing clean against his torso and sending him reeling backward. The strike is fast and decisive. No grab, no grapple, just the full downward force of his body crashing into someone who has nowhere left to go. Pietro comes up from the fight, and his face tells the whole story. Eyes wide, jaw set, locked onto something just outside the frame. Whatever he's seeing in that moment has cut through everything. The brawl, the syringe, the restroom chaos. He looks like a man who just realized the math doesn't add up in his favor. Gangster drops to his knees, both hands clutching his neck, screaming. Across from him, the man with the knife doesn't even flinch, just stands there, blade still in hand, and tells him flat out he didn't stab him. And if he had, he'd already be dead 3 times over. Gangster on the floor scrambles back against the wall, voice breaking as he screams, demanding to know who Pietro is. Pietro faces him and answers. He doesn't know what kind of a legal business this man runs, but if he knows Gangster's name, then he already understands what's coming next. Pietro grabs the gangster by the shoulder and wrenches hard. The man screams, clutching the joint, his voice cracking as he begs for it to stop. The threat Pietro read in that hesitant knife grip, the bravado, the wall he scrambled against. None of it matters now. One grip, and he's folded. Across the room, Octopus closes the distance on Gangster and delivers the verdict face to face. Then you need to die here. Gangster, still sweating, still shaken, fires back with a curse. But the words land hollow against a man who just folded someone with one hand. The threat is real now. This stopped being a warning the moment Octopus stepped in. Octopus looks him over, pauses, and lands on something new. Your pants won't do. It's not a threat this time. It's an inventory check. Whatever Octopus has planned next for Gangster, it apparently requires a wardrobe change. Gangster blinks, hand drifting to the back of his neck. Pardon? The word comes out confused, almost offended, but the command that follows isn't up for debate. Somewhere, a phone screen shows a balance of 0-1. The 80 million gone as suddenly as it arrived. Octopus strides through what looks like a station interior, phone in hand, pedestrians parting around him like he's not even there. Yuna is visible among the crowd behind him. He checks the screen, and the zero balance he just saw has an explanation. I told them not to touch that money. Somewhere else, Gangster has reached his verdict. He stares forward with cold certainty and delivers it flat. All right, in the end, that's what you guys are worth. No anger, no performance. Just a man who has already done the math and doesn't like the number. Now the street shifts to Pietro. He moves through the foreground as Yuna and Gangster walk behind him, talking about a Glory Group scholarship and how happy that should make the winner. Their conversation stays casual, but Pietro is already in the same space with them. And the story jumps back to the Honor Orphanage, the small religious home where the narrator grew up. Now, 50 years later, that place is in focus again. Moments later, a billboard pushes the Glory Club's public image front and center, showing Yuna among starving children while its charity slogan runs overhead. At the same time, the narration undercuts it outright, calling the group a cartel that spread its influence through politics. Across the city, Glory Group signs keep filling the skyline, turning the company into a name that's impossible to avoid. Now Pietro takes it a step further and says the company exists because of him, so he is the one who needs to shut it down. And the story shifts to a warehouse, shut tight for the night, with boxes piled outside the closed doors. Inside, Gangster is already waiting alone, and when he sees who came for him, he blurts out, stunned, that they came by themselves. He corrects himself at once. This is not Pietro, and Gangster says there is no need to bring anyone else if this is the person who came. Now the argument turns straight at Pietro. As Gangster stays slumped in the chair, Octopus faces him, and the exchange strips away any pretense of loyalty. One of them calls the Glory Club greedy, brushes off the threat of dying early, and warns that trusting Pietro will get them all killed early too. Octopus cuts the back and forth short. He says they should end this now, and warns that the faster it ends, the less pain there will be. He laughs right in their face, props his cheek on one hand, and mocks them for being a child, as if this is more annoying than threatening. He adds that he has basically set up a festival for their guest. Now Pietro steps into view at the head of Vacna, mercenary, with Octopus flanking him on both sides while Gangster and another dark-clothed man face them from the edges. One Octopus keeps a curved blade over his shoulder, and Pietro stands there with one hand in his pocket, making it clear he did not come alone. Gangster sizes him up and realizes this bastard is not one of Glory Club's 12 disciples, which only makes his arrogance harder to stomach. Before he can dwell on it, someone calls him out and tells him to move because their guest is waiting. As the order comes down to treat him well, Killer, Octopus, and Gangster close in on Pietro at once. Even surrounded in the corridor, Pietro keeps moving forward. And that is when a pink-haired figure in a purple suit leans in, taking over the moment without a word. Moments later, the only thing left in view is an overturned metal frame with blood pooled and splashed around it. Whatever just happened here was violent enough to leave the floor like this. Now Gangster is the one on the floor, staring at the blood around him as he throws up a hand and blurts out that this is impossible. He can't even finish the thought. Gangster just stares ahead with his hand half raised, shaking as he blurts out that no figure should be able to do this. Now Octopus speaks up himself, brushing the whole setup off as a disappointment and saying that for a feast prepared this carefully, it is a lot blander than he expected. Now the orange-haired fighter cinches a person in place with his flexible body, keeping them completely pinned as he adds, "Don't you think?" A title card identifies him as Octopius, putting his flexibility front and center. Now, Gangster jerks back and blurts out, "Don't come any closer." Octopus lunges straight in any way, throwing out a hand and shouting, "Go away." Moments later, the story shifts to a lit building with a traditional entrance, its red lanterns and stone lions marking the next stop. Now Killer is down on the tiled floor, smeared with spilled debris, while Gangster can only sit there injured in the back. As they move, one of them confirms the CCTV is gone and no weapon traces were left behind. That leaves them with a single conclusion. Only one person could have pulled this off. Now Octopus names the man behind it all, Pietro. He adds that the old man is still alive and is now killing their people, while Yuna stands behind him and listens. Now, they move on a new urgency. Someone says Pietro's wanted order will be issued soon, and no matter what, they have to get to Pietro first as Octopus walks ahead with Pietro following behind. Now Yuna takes over and orders them to find her location first, then report back to her. As her order goes out, Pietro stays behind the stacked papers with a smile, while another Pietro crouches and clutches his head. Near the blood on the floor, Pietro bends over a collapsed Pietro and holds him close. And now Yuna gives her answer at last. Through the bruises and the eye patch, she quietly says yes. Moments later, the story shifts inside an ornate interior, opening onto a quiet balcony and doorway with no one in sight. And that quiet entry is broken at once when Pietro, and Yuna all turn toward the doorway. One of them blurts out in surprise, and another immediately says they are not open today. Instead, the brown-haired man at the table calmly questions Pietro's reason for coming and asks whether he even has an appointment. He answers just as calmly. Gangster keeps eating and says he does not need an appointment, but he does have a grudge. Gangster reminds Yuna that a grudge, and Yuna responds, "Did you get pressured for your credit?" He circles back to the number and asks if it is about 6 billion. He gets no answer. The bald-haired brown suit jacket, light dress shirt, black-tie dragon just faces them with a calm smile, holding the room on him for a beat. Octopus opens with a single order, "Close the door." He doesn't stop at that. Pietro says he thinks Octopus is tied to Pietro, and even if he is wrong, the two of them are not leaving alive. Pietro cuts himself off with a single word, but now the room turns wary. Someone questions how anyone there knows about Pietro, guesses he has to be tied to his club, and admits they have no read on what he is planning. They throw out two guesses, son or disciple, and shut both down at once. Pietro had always been alone, so whatever tie this man has to him, it is neither of those. Now Octopus and Pietro lock eyes, and neither of them looks away. No one says a word. A voice finally breaks the silence and offers a way out, one chance to live. At the same time, a hand comes up with two fingers raised, making the terms simple. There are two choices. Now they lay out the price in full. Tell them where Pietro is, and they let him walk. Refuse, and the answer is a bullet to the head, with waiter holding up two fingers beside Pietro and Yuna as they stand over him. This time, Pietro admits neither choice works for him, and that hesitation draws a sharp shout from somewhere nearby. Another voice, or maybe a muttered thought, answers with a simple reaction. This young bastard. He answers at last. Pietro lifts his chopsticks and says no one has ever survived after hearing what he is about to say. He is not done. A voice cuts in with a new offer instead. Option 3. And the answer is simple. Pietro lifts his chopsticks, looks straight at them, and says, I'm Pietro. A voice cuts in and gives its name. Pietro. An octopus makes it worse by admitting he killed Pietro's subordinates. Now Pietro just stares at him and asks, stunned, if he really said that. He repeats the confession plainly. He killed those two. And instead of backing off, someone at the table answers with a dry jab about his hearing. Now a voice cuts through the table talk and flat out rejects it, demanding to know what they're talking about because Pietro did not kill him. Octopus immediately sees the problem. If that claim is true and Pietro did not kill them, this is about to get messy. Now Pietro cuts straight to the contradiction and demands to know why they were attacked in the first place. Instead, Octopus turns to an off-panel kid, has the gun shown off as real, and cuts past everything else with one question. What is that kid's connection to Pietro? Across the table, Pietro says nothing and just holds that stare, taking in the question aimed at the kid. Now Yuna brings a knife up by her shoulder and squares herself to whoever is in front of her. Whatever answer the table was waiting for, it has already turned into a threat. Instead, Pietro answers the challenge head-on and asks if they really want to know. When the answer comes back yes, Yuna reaches for the food and says there is one method. Pietro immediately presses for it. He does not give the answer right away. Pietro keeps eating and, with the skewer still in hand, throws back a bitter line about being killed before answering with a dry, "That's great." Now the shaved-headed man finally shows his hand. He says he is good at that, orders everyone to hold his breath, and Pietro snaps his handgun up with both hands before answering, "Yes, sir." And the shot barely gets out before Octopus is hit hard in the neck and knocked backward, his handgun still flashing as the counterattack cuts him off. Across the room, Pietro is already down on the floor, and Yuna stays on him with another aggressive move while Octopus stands over the scene and watches. Now Yuna jerks back with a blade still stuck in her leg, and a voice blurts out in shock that it pierced his vital point. That one hit changes the exchange immediately. A moment later, a hand sets incense into the burner. The fight gives way to a quiet ritual. He keeps eating as he sizes the feet up. Pietro judges the person to be around his age, but says none of his friends at the Glory Club could pull it off, and he would not find anyone else in the whole country who could either. Pietro lets the silence sit for a second, and when he finally speaks, all he says is, "That was cool." Instead, Pietro looks down at waiter, says he likes the guts it took to try that, and presses for an answer. He asks which club Pietro belongs to, says skill like that would be hard to miss, and offers to bring waiter over to his side. An octopus drops the talk, levels his handgun with both hands, and fires as he curses the person in front of him. "You son of a bitch." He gets down behind the red shield and lets it take the burst. The bullets hammer into it hard enough to throw off sparks and tear fragments loose, but Pietro stays covered. An octopus just laughs. He mocks the person in front of him as a kid and follows it with a taunting, "Don't you know?" Now the cover tells the truth. Bullets punch smoking holes through the big red tabletop, cracks spread across it, and a voice says this is not a movie. Cover like that will not stop gunfire. He keeps coming, gun raised, while the man behind the shield can only groan. Octopus gives him one last chance and demands to know how he knows Pietro, adding that killing someone this skilled would be a waste unless he comes out. Octopus stops waiting for an answer and fires straight into the close target in front of him as a voice snaps that they can handle the cleanup after. Now Pietro freezes and blurts out stunned, "What?" Instead, the spill gives it away. A bottle lies on the floor, and the red puddle is not blood at all. Someone blurts out in disbelief that it is chili oil. Now the suited gunman swings his pistol around the pillar and curses, because whoever he is hunting is not there either. He snaps out loud, asking where the man went. Now both octopus men drop low and sweep the area instead, one keeping his handgun ready while they search. One of them blurts out where he went, and the other can only spit back that the guy is like a ghost. Octopus suddenly looks up and freezes, and all he gets out is a shocked curse. "Oh, fuck." Across the room, Pietro suddenly closes the distance on Octopus, driving straight at him around the pillar before he can keep searching. He follows through with a furious shout, smashing his fist into Octopus's face and snapping his head back. He doesn't let Octopus answer. Pietro surges in again and drives another punch into Octopus's upper body, catching him mid-swing and knocking him back with the bottle still raised. Now Pietro snaps his arm up through the clash and sends a handgun spinning into the air. That jolt knocks Octopus backward again, leaving him staggered as Pietro keeps his own pistol in hand. As the fight stays tight, Pietro rips an uppercut straight into the suited figure's face and snaps his head back. Now Octopus can only stare up through the blood and admit he cannot track Pietro at all. He blurts out the only thing he can grasp. The attacker moving this fast cannot really be a kid. Now Pietro throws both hands forward at the black-haired figure, forcing him to look up in shock. Across from him, a hand clamps over Pietro's mouth and forces his head down before he can react. He jerks back under the hold, completely cut off. Across the room, Pietro stands over Octopus as Octopus stays sprawled on the floor, too stunned to get up. Pietro has the fight under control now. He stops and just looks down, saying nothing. For the first time since taking control, Pietro holds the room in silence instead of another hit. Now, someone steps past Pietro's bleeding body as he lies completely still on the floor, and a voice breaks the silence with one blunt question. How does this make any sense? And with blood still at his mouth, Pietro admits the gap himself. After more than 10 years and hundreds of fights, he says this is the first time he has seen someone that's skilled at such a young age. Now, the method finally gets named, the do-or-die tactic. He pushes the point further. One day they will face someone stronger, and when that opening comes, they have to use it and catch that enemy off guard. Now Pietro says the method out loud, the do-or-die tactic. And after that, the speaker says he spent the time refining a technique that belonged to him alone. And now Pietro has Octopus on the floor in a chokehold, squeezing from behind while Octopus claws at the ground and gasps for help. Around them, the onlookers do not step in. One voice only pushes harder, yelling that it is not enough and ordering Pietro to squeeze tighter. He does not stop at the choke. With Octopus down his feet, Pietro turns it into a lesson and warns that the biggest threat comes the moment you think you have already won. His rule is simple. Never show your back to an enemy, and never trust yourself to relax first. Now Pietro says he finally pulled it off, and with that, he is sure he will not lose to anyone again. Octopus is already down, and a dark-booted figure pins his head to the floor. Blood is on his face, and he can only stare up while the pressure keeps him in place. Across him, Octopus drives a hand straight into the gray-haired man's face, and the hit snaps the man's head with it. Across the room, Octopus keeps the pressure on and whips his arm through in one fast, downward arc. The blow does not stop at the first hit. He doesn't let the exchange break. Octopus gets behind Pietro and locks him down from the rear, and the fight turns into a tight, brutal struggle as the two crash against each other. A rough cry breaks out, but the grip holds. Now Octopus drags Pietro in close and tears into him, cursing that Pietro was only just born when he entered this line of work. Pietro fires back just as hard, insisting he has been alive far longer and calling Octopus the newborn instead. He leans right into Raphael's face and demands to know if the message finally got through. A voice finally cuts in with a dry comment. That took a while. Now everyone freezes as Pietro is suddenly standing over them, and the shout turns straight to confusion. If Octopus is there, then who have they been dealing with? Octopus can only look up at him, stunned. He finally recognizes the man on the floor. Octopus blurts out that waiter is his subordinate, and the thought hits him right after. In the dark, he may have mistaken waiter for the kid. Even pinned down, Octopus snaps back that he's been doing this work for over 10 years. And now a voice doubles down, saying that is exactly why they know it for sure. And with Pietro right there in front of him, the speaker lays it out plainly. He is certain this is the man who's going to kill him. Now Octopus throws a hand out and tries to stop the next move, stammering for the brown-haired light purple collar jacket or shirt figure to wait and talk this out. The answer that comes back is a sharp, mocking, "Oh yeah," and the clash heads the other way instead. Instead, Octopus grabs Glory Worker by the head and neck and offers her up to someone out of view, saying they can take her because, even without much experience, she will still be useful. As Glory Worker struggles in his grip, he keeps pushing her to back him up. She tries to pull free and blurts out that she cannot go with him, but Glory Worker clamps down on Yuna's neck and snaps at her to shut up because they are in the middle of an important conversation. And just like that, someone accepts it. Okay, deal. And Glory Worker jumps on that answer at once, pointing at Pietro and praising how fast he made the call. The men with him break into loud approval, and the whole exchange locks in as a done deal. Now Pietro makes the next move plain. He points away from the door and orders them to take her, use her however they want, then take her along and act like none of this ever happened. From off-panel, someone immediately snaps back with a threat to find out who he is and cut him down. And the next move gets a name, the do-or-die tactic. Now Octopus jerks his head and blurts out, "What?" Instead, Octopus throws a warning down the hall at Octopus. If he turns his back like he's already won, he's making a mistake. Octopus stays facing him from the far end of the corridor. Across from him, Octopus goes still. The caption makes the turn plain. The man standing there is the one who will kill him. Instead, the speaker turns that warning into a lesson for Pietro, student, Octopus, Raphael, and the rest of the trainees. One day they will face someone stronger, and when that enemy drops their guard, they need to hit first and take them by surprise. Now Pietro drops the next fact himself. He says he already killed 2 of his subordinates, then throws out a number, around 7. 6 billion, like he's putting a price on the table. An Octopus can only stare and blurt out that this cannot be happening. Moments later, a hat-wearing figure has the floor, and the 2 men at the front turn toward him with the rest of the crowd staying quiet behind them. And that is when Pietro finally reacts. He stares at Pietro and blurts out, "Pietro!" Now Pietro presses him with one question. Does he remember what was said back then? And the figure barely gets the words out, muttering that people who learn who Pietro is, before the thought trails off. He finishes the thought with the only point that matters. Not one of them is alive. Now Octopus gets his answer, snaps out a quick bingo, and lunges straight in with his hand already reaching for the next hit. Across from him, Octopus's swing lands clean, and Octopus's head jerks aside with blood spilling from his mouth. He is not stopping at one hit. And now Octopus drives the attack upward, blasting Octopus off the ground and sending him flying amid the impact bursts. The fight stops being a close exchange and turns into a clean launch. A beat later, the story cuts away to the city itself, lit up under the night sky. Moments later, the report comes in. Octopus is dead. The inside CCTV was erased, and by the time they arrived, the place had already been wiped clean. Now Pietro fixes on Octopus and voices the part that does not add up. An old man who was nearly dead from a gunshot came back within a day, killed 4 trained killers, and left no trace behind. Now Glory Worker turns that suspicion into an order. The target carries a 7.6 billion bounty, and every Glory member in the country needs to hear about it. And the black-haired shirtless demon raises the stakes again, declaring that in 1 hour he will issue a hunt for Pietro. As the hunt closes in, the city keeps moving. People check his phone. Pietro, Yuna, and Octopus pass through the same crowded crossing, and everyone around them keeps walking like nothing has changed. But that threat fades into the crowd for a second as the girl grabs Kid's dad's hand, points up, and calls for her to look. Now Pietro stops in the middle of the crossing, looks up, and lets out a quiet, Yuna looks the same way while the crowd keeps moving around them. And now a huge donation ad puts Pietro's face over the street, while someone nearby notes they really went all out handing out flyers. Octopus is left staring at the campaign as the crowd gathers around the display. As Pietro keeps walking, Glory Worker calls out for the Glory Welfare Foundation and pushes a monthly 20,001 donation plan, while volunteers on both sides keep offering flyers. And as someone looks over the flyer with Pietro's face on it, an off-panel voice says, "There's no need to look for me." And right after that, a hand rips open a package in one sharp pull. Whatever was sealed inside is being accessed on the spot. And now Pietro makes it plain. He says he will come for them himself.